Let's get to Bob Pisani. Morning, Bob.
And unlike yesterday, we are holding the early gains, Carl. Boeing, 3M, Microsoft, even J.P. Morgan, even the banks are contributing. Haven't seen that in a while here. So here we go. China shares doing well, really, for a second day in a row here as they try to indicate they're attempting to get back to normal. Banks are having a good morning. Semis, here's your two leading indicators. Industrials also a little bit better. Even energy, although it's on the low man on the totem pole in terms of gains here today, up fractionally. So where's the bottom is what everyone's trying to figure out. We've had two very unusual days, as you know here. We've had two 90% downside days, where 90% of the volume is to the downside. That doesn't happen very often, and often it's indicative of at least a short-term bottom. So you figure out it's supply and demand, folks. Is selling exhausted yet? Is demand improving? We seem to be seeing this today, but there's some worrisome trends still out there. Look, did you see the overnight futures market here? This is what we look at very carefully every morning when I can. You see this? This is the European Open. That's a 500 point equivalent drop in the Dow, 50 points in the S&P futures. As Europe opened, there was speculation about bigger outbreaks in France and other parts of Europe. You saw what that did. We bounced a little bit here, and we're now bouncing in the open. But that's a worrisome sign that we have these rolling outbreaks that affect the market. So that makes a lot of people think this is not necessarily over. In terms of what's being affected so far, it's been pretty modest in terms of the impacts here. Banks are 12% off of their highs recently. Semiconductors, emerging markets, a little more than 10%. Industrials, 9%. So, yeah, a few are in correction territory, but it's not that dramatic. If you look at the FANG names, of course, all of them, big momentum names here, they're down. Some in modest correction territory. A little odd, though, don't you think here? Remember, for example, Apple has significant exposure over to China. But if you look around here, Facebook and Google, what exposure do they really have to China? Really not much at all, and yet they're down the same level here. So it's not necessarily rational in terms of like what's being exposed to the markets right now. If you take a look at what's doing well, hey, the exchanges are loving all of this volatility. CME futures, record volume yesterday. The CBOE, biggest day of trading in VIX futures since October 2018. NYSE heavier, 50% heavier volume than usual. All the exchanges love all of this volume and volatility. You want to watch market makers like Virtu, one of the big market makers out there. That's had a nice little run since all of this has happened here. So there are people that are benefiting from this. Where is all this going? We are going to see fiscal stimulus on an epic level in the next few months. We're already seeing some early signs of it. If you take a look here, so let's call it helicopter money, essentially. There's reports this morning that Germany is going to temporarily suspend the limits on public borrowing. That's public borrowing. There's reports that Hong Kong is going to do a massive stimulus program. Forget about fiscal stimulus. How about just handing out money? Reports Hong Kong, $10,000 Hong Kong money going to be given out to every citizen of Hong Kong. That's $1,200 in cash here. So bear in mind that the central banks and governments are going to be engaged in massive rounds of giving away money in the next couple of months. And that, of course, would be a help.